There's chumashim here. Over there. There we go. We need over here. Okay. I went fishing before. That's these over there. You got? You want to see the big one? When people come in. Yeah, bigger one is that. Okay, there we go. There'll be a source sheet in the middle. You use a bigger one up to your age. I'll have it on up to no, I got a food for it. Okay. And then someone comes in, might go pass it up. Okay. Just remind me I know the title. Just remind me and see if you understood the title. There's a cuter title. It's about that's the topic. What's the title? No, what's the title? That was the topic. Yeah. The title was Making Sense of the Census. Yeah. Right? That was supposed to be alliteration, yeah. I don't know if you caught it. Making sense out of the census. Now, who can tell me why the census doesn't make sense?
You already did it.
What? No. Oh, they already did it when? But when was the first time we took a census? When was the first time? If you remember, like the history, it's really, if you know 1948 history, when we declared a state and came with that crazy idea of the Jewish state in the Middle East. So one of the first things they had to do when they started the state was to make a census. But there was a war going on, and every night there was what's called a blackout. But they had people going around taking the census. So they had a really rough decision to make, and they were mevatel, the blackout, and took the risk for people taking the census so they could go house to house. Read your Jewish history.
I guess they knew people were home.
They're hoping. That first census wasn't so easy. And now, why is that so important? Because based on the census, that's how you that's who gets to vote, the right to vote, and then that depends who's going to make the next stupid mistake. I mean, not the next one. I'll be careful today. Now, back to our topic. But every part of being a nation is a census. So we have a very approximate number coming out of Egypt. Who remembers that approximate number? Yeah, about 600,000. But that's the Torah's estimate. But I don't think they counted them one by one. But when's the first time in Chumash that we take a census of everyone, or everyone who counts? Anyone remember? It doesn't say there, but it might be related. Is there a parsha that talks about it? Very good. Pekudei. That's what I was looking for. That. Now, why is Parshat Pekudei called Pekudei? You've heard of Parshat Pekudei? What book is that? That's the end of Shemot, isn't it? And we count the people, but we're Jewish, so we kill two birds with one stone. So how do you count the people?
Take money.
You take money. But you do something not Jewish. Instead of taking a shekel, we take half a shekel. That's the whole theme behind that. But what did we do with all that money? What medal was the census?
We used it for the kavanas. The shekel went to the kavanas.
Oh, because you read the Mishnah. That's our custom. We take the Machzit shekel. Remember Parshat Shkalim, Shabbat Shkalim. We take that. But in Chumash, in Parshat Pekudei, we took the silver, and what did we do with it? Yeah. We made the sockets to hold up the Mishkan, to hold up the Krashim, the Adanim. Now that was before they built the Mishkan or after they built the Mishkan? Before. Had to be before, right? Because you can't build the Mishkan without the sockets. So therefore, soon after Chet HaEgel, soon after we got the second Luchot, because Am Yisrael didn't hear the mitzvah of Veichuli Truma. Parshat Truma, Am Yisrael didn't hear. That's when Moshe got it. It's a different question. But until Parshat Vayakel, Am Yisrael don't know anything about the Mishkan, because Moshe doesn't tell them anything. He heard on Har Sinai until he gets a new contract. So when Moshe comes down after Yom Kippur, he gets the mitzvah, and most likely, when did we take a census? Probably, early that winter, maybe Cheshvan, maybe early in the school year, after the holidays are over. Did they celebrate Sukkot that year? That's a good question. I mean, what? They didn't celebrate Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur happened. That was that's when the day they got kapara. Okay, If it's an agricultural holiday, there's nothing to celebrate. If it's a historical holiday, remember that your years in the desert, you're living it. You don't have to remember it yet. Okay. That's a good question, whether Sukkot was celebrated in the desert. That's not our topic today. I'm sorry, we're just getting started. You'll see why it's important in a minute. But we counted people. And anyone remember the number we got to? Does this Chumash record the number we got? What? Yeah, so look at Parshat Pekudei. Yeah. Pekudei suffers from being a double Parsha most years and being very repetitive and very boring, so we don't... It suffers from what I call Shvi syndrome, even though it's not Shvi. You know what Shvi syndrome is? The end of the Parsha, no one ever studies because you start early in the week, you do Rishon, Sheni. By the time you get to the end of the Parsha, you stop doing. And there's no air conditioning on today, is there? Am I right or wrong?
Would be good.
There's something. Where's the who's in charge? Yeah, there's no air on. We're okay.
We can turn it on.
Yeah, she's going to work on it. So here we go. Just okay. Yeah, just push them all up and when the alarm goes off. Okay. Okay. Harold will take care of it. Okay. It probably got mixed up because of the wrist, probably.
How about 6,550?
6,000. 603,550. 550. Okay, that's the number. Remember that number? 603,550. Now, how much silver is that going to be? Divide that in two. 301,775, something like that. And in case you don't know your math, every 3,000 shekel was one kikar. It's like a kikar is a block of silver. Kikar. And every eden was a kikar. A kikar la'aden. It's all there in Parshat Pekudei. But remember the number? 603,550. Right? And that was before they built the Mishkan. Okay. Now we're ready for Sefer Bamidbar, which has another name in rabbinic literature. What do the rabbis call Sefer Bamidbar?
Chumash Pekudim.
Chumash Pekudim. It's in the source sheet in a minute. It's actually the Mishnah in Yom, I think. Remember on Yom Kippur, we have the Kohen Gadol reads the Torah. Remember the Mishnah in Yom? So he reads Parshat Achrimot, doesn't he? And then when he gets to Mafter, they don't take out a second Torah. They don't roll it. What do they say? You know what? There's more in here than it says, but we don't want it's called Tirchut Tzibura. They used to believe in that. They try to keep the services short. And he says that he reads it out. He reads from Chumash Pekudim out by heart. Understand? Well, I'll show you the Mishnah. But in the Mishnah, already that's a pretty solid rabbinic source. They refer to Sefer Bamidbar as Chumash Pekudim. Now, is that the topic of the book? What? Yeah, I want to know who's accountable for that name. Okay, one last bad pun. I'll try to get a laugh out of someone. Okay. In other words, the rabbis for some reason called the book Chumash Pekudim. What's the standard reason? Because it's the first topic, and it happens again later on. Got it? Okay. But what I want to show you today, there's something bigger going on, calling the book Pekudim. Okay? Let me just give you a little hint. That's why I want you to have a Chumash today. I can't put everything on the source sheet. You'll see why in a minute. Look at the last line of Sefer Bereshit. That's also a pretty important book. The very last line. Remember how Sefer Bereshit ends? Who's dying at the very end of Sefer Bereshit? Yosef's dying, right? No. What's the last thing he says? Go back a line. Vayomer Yosef elachav hinenu chimet, and Elohim pokod yifkor Elohim etchem. And now, how did he know that? Look at the last thing Yaakov told Yosef. Remember in Parshat Vaychi? Look at the last thing that Yaakov told Yosef. That's what we're saying. Yosef learned it from his father, I think. He's quoting the same pasuk, right? Pokod yifkod. Okay. So it's the whole idea of God watching our history. Remember, what's God telling Yaakov? Even though you're down in Egypt, I'm going to bring you out of here one day. You've heard this concept of gula? I think it's it's a big topic. We drink to it at the Seder. But even though we're in exile and we're in slavery, or we're in someone else's land, God says, one day God's going to remember you, and start and bring you back to this land. So the theme of Pkidah, in my shul we have a minhag on Rosh Hashanah. We read, what do we read on Rosh Hashanah? I think first day. Hashem Pakad et Sarah. Who remembers what that means? Hashem Pakad. Pakad. Now who remembers? Pakad Lisko usually is to remember. Pkidah is something much more than just remembering. What do you call it? In modern day Hebrew, in the army, what's the name of your officer? Mefaked. And what's the name for a order you get from the army? Pkudah. Where's that word coming from? Lifkod doesn't mean to count. That's Mimana Afar Yaakov. To count is limnot. Lifkod is much more. It's much more. It's like being charged. Now, anyone grow up in Bnei Akiva?
Mifkad.
Yeah, you've heard of Mifkad? Now, parents think that's a way to keep the kids busy. Shabbos afternoon, let's give time to sleep. That's how Bnei Akiva started. But in general, what's a Mifkad? A Mifkad, everyone stands in a chet. You know what that is? Okay? And you get a speech. And what's called the Kolmonari, it's very, very communist, but the Kolmonari gives a speech. And it's a Mifkad, we count everyone, but the goal is not to count people, it's people need to know that they count. Understand the difference? And you give a Mifkad when you give people who are charged. Now, let me show you where that's coming from. What was that number again? 603,550? Now, look at the first line of Chumash HaPkudim. That's the beginning of Sefer Bamidbar. Look at the first line of the book, and tell me if you can find a date. Yeah. The book opens up with a date. We haven't had a date in Chumash since since the first of Iyar, since a month earlier when we built the Mishkan. We built the Mishkan on the first of Iyar.
No, first of Nisan.
The first of Nisan, first of Nisan we built the Mishkan. And the first of Iyar, a month later, we're counting the people. Got it? And we count the people. We count everybody from all the people going to war, I think. And do we get a total? See if you can find the total that we get in the first of Iyar and the second year. Who can find the total? It should be at the end of the parak. Yeah, what pasuk is that? Yeah, what pasuk is that? Should be the end of parak Aleph. Yeah, Memvav. The end of parak Aleph, Memvav. Give me the number. 603,550. Whoa, what an amazing coincidence, isn't it? The same number? Yeah. Now, all the Parshim deal with this. What people say it was an amazing coincidence that because someone must have, things must have changed. Did we count Shevadi? Didn't count Shevadi? How could it be the exact same number? Okay?
Same number for one and nine.
Yeah, okay. Now, I think the best answer is we don't know everyone's birthday, but every year, it's like school, you grow a year in September. You understand? Now, so you increment your age when the school year begins. Our school year begins on Rosh Hashanah. Okay? So we counted when? We counted in Nisan. Okay? I'm sorry, we counted after Yom Kippur, got it? And it's been 6-7 months since then. 7 months out. But it hasn't been Rosh Hashanah yet. And therefore, no one got older. But there's a bigger question. Why are we counting the people? We just counted them. Why count them again? To raise money? Okay. Yeah. By the way, but one little side point, and then we'll get to work. When we counted the people, all the numbers are very round numbers, aren't they? They're all like 50s or 100. Isn't that a little strange? So my daughter came up. I quote my daughter. She came up with a great answer. She says, when you give a machzit shekel, so when you count things, it's hard to keep count with everything. How did they count? Everyone gave a machzit shekel, and how much does a machzit shekel weigh? Machzit shekel. Now, if you ever see those lawyer shows, they have those ancient scales. Now, what'd you do? You had on one side of the scale, you had a weight. Let's say it weighed 10 kilos, something like that. So if I put 10 kilo on this side and I put little silver coins on the other side, what do? We took all the silver and we weighed it against, let's say, a 10 kilo weight or a 10 shekel weight, whatever it is. So, or maybe a 50 or a 50 shekel weight, whatever it was. So every 50 shekel weight was 100 people. You follow?
Yeah.
So you're never going to get exact anyhow. So, but we weighed. I think it has to do with it's not the way they counted people, the way they counted the silver. It's called if you number of significant digits in math, you get the total. Now, anyway, we have the numbers. Yeah.
Why does it say su'u?
So, like, why lift up?
Yeah,
For the same reason as lift up. What?
It doesn't say moner.
It says, yeah. In fact, in English, what do you call a shomer in English?
Guard.
A bodyguard. What do you call him in Hebrew? Shomer rosh. Right? In Hebrew, you guard the head. In English, you guard the body. Yeah. There's something going on there. But they suet rosh b'nei Yisrael. We'll say why we're counting their heads because we want people to use them, or not use them, depending. I wouldn't say depending on gender. So what I want to understand is why are the rabbis calling the book Chumash Apkudim, and why the census is so important? Okay, so that's our goal for this year now. So, and one question: why again counting? Now, to appreciate what's going on, I want to show you how problematic the first line of the book is, because. What date did Sefer Shemot end on? Anyone remember? Sefer Shemot ended on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. It says explicitly, Perek Mem and Shemot, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, they put the Mishkan together. Understand? The Mishkan together, and so Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Are there any dates in Sefer Vayikra?
Yeah, Yom HaShmini.
Yom HaShmini, which Chazal understand is the same day, Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Or maybe the 8th, but the same week. But time doesn't move in Sefer Vayikra. The narrative of Chumash, we've been following since we left Egypt, ends on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Now, what date should Sefer Bamidbar begin with? With Rosh Chodesh Nisan, right? When they put up the Mishkan. And it does. Want to see where? So let me just show you something, just to make sure. I know you have a Chumash with you. So, well, we'll get to that in a second. But go again, as long as you have Shemot open. Go to Shemot Perek Mem, just the first line. Just Pasuk Yudzayin to save us. No, Pasuk Perek Mem, the first line. Sefer Shemot Perek Mem, the first line. In the first line in Perek Mem, what's got to tell Moshe? Ve'echad b'chodesh harishon takim. Got it? There's a commandment to put it up on the day. And then just skip the Pasuk Chet and Tet. What's Moshe have to do when he puts it up? What do we do on Rosh Chodesh Nisan? What's it say in Perek Aleph Pasuk Chet? It says, let's see if it's still there. Pasuk Chet, V'samtet Chet, I'm sorry, Pasuk Chet. V'lekachtet shemen ha-mishcha, in Pasuk Chet, U'mashachtet ha-mishkan b'tal sherba, v'kidashto b'chol chelav, u'mashachtet mizbeach, v'kidashto b'mizbeach chodesh kodeshim, mashachtet tekior, got it? We do Mishicha v'lekadesh. Now, keep that in mind, and in Pasuk Yudzayin they actually do it. The first day of the first month, Hukam ha-mishkan. And he puts it all together. Before you forget all that, go to Sefer Bamidbar Perek Zayin. And tell me what day it is. We read this Hanukkah, right? What's it say? Vayhi b'yom chalom Moshe lakim et hamishkan, vayimshach oto, vaykadesh ot kol kelav, v'tamizeh kol kelav, vayimshchem v'kadesh otam. Isn't Perek Zayin Bamidbar a direct continuation of Sefer at the end of Sefer Shemot?
Yeah, basically.
It's a perfect continuation. You can't miss it, for sure. Now, and therefore, if Sefer Shemot ends in Rosh Chodesh Nisan and continues in Sefer Bamidbar and Perek Zayin, what's the problem with Perek Aleph? It's out of order. Now, where should it be? Now, let's think logically. When we leave Egypt, pretend maybe you were there. When we left Egypt, where do we think we're going? What did that guy, remember? How did Moshe get elected? What did he promise everyone? He promised them the promised land. Now, when people wanted to kick him out of government, what did they say? Remember Korach? You're not legitimate. Why? You promised us the promised land, right? Remember? But you didn't bring us there. Instead, you took us out of a promised land and brought us here in the desert. Isn't that every complaint? That's why they want to fire him all the time. It's just reviewing stuff if we come up a lot in Bamidbar. No. So why don't we go from Egypt right to Israel? Because we have to serve God at Har Sinai to say thank you and enter a covenant. Remember? Now, why don't we go to Israel the day after we get the Torah on Har Sinai? But why don't we give after like the first week in Sivan? Okay? No, because Moshe has to go for 40 days to get more laws. I need a guidebook, I need a constitution and a law book called the Torah to guide us. Okay? So we're waiting impatiently for Moshe to come down. Everyone knows what happens. Chet Egel, and therefore Moshe has to negotiate a whole new covenant. And that's going to take another 2 sets of 40 days. Got it? On what day did we get the new covenant? On Yom Kippur. There's a half year in the desert already. People getting... No. Now I need a group project to unite the nation again. Remember, the Mishkan builds the nation? And therefore, for the next 6 months, what do? We build the Mishkan. We have this group project. And what day do we put the Mishkan together? Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Now, why don't we leave the day we put the Mishkan together? It's portable. Why can't we go the next day to Israel? Why can't we go the next day?
Gonna make Pesach.
No, not so fast. There's a 12-day Kiddush. No, there's a 12-day Kiddush. Isn't there? 12 day, no, that was beforehand. The 7 days. That's a machloket. But a 12-day Kiddush no one can miss. That's over on the 13th. Now we're ready for Erev Pesach, right? That's in Perek Tet, isn't it? Now, we should bring Pesach and go to Israel. What are we waiting for? Except people complain again. Who complained now? When we brought the first Pesach, who complained? There's a story about it in Chumash. The people in Tamei complain, and what do they want? Hey, they want a heter to join. God says, yes, but not wait for another full moon. Remember? And now we have to wait how long? We have to wait a month. What are we going to do for the next month? You ever run summer camp? What do you do when you have a bunch of kids, right? And nothing to do except wait. Because it's raining or whatever it is. You follow? I need to start B'nai Kiv. I'm sorry. I need a mifkad. Because I don't need to know how many people there are. You follow? Kill time is a bad word. I need to do something constructive with them. So what are we doing between Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni? I'm getting them ready for the conquest. And now, even though I've counted them before, I need to charge them with them. And count. I know how many people there are. They need to know that everyone counts. Understand the difference?
And you're also organizing the camp.
The camp was already organized a month. No, the camp was organized on Rosh Chodesh Nisan.
Not by Shvatim.
Look in the. Remember that 12-day Kiddush?
Yeah.
Look at the order of the Shvatim during the 12-day Kiddush. It's the same order as the camp was organized already. Okay, it's just we're getting reorganized again. Maybe planning it, but everything Pesach Sheni caused a 1 month delay. Got that? Now, but what's important is that people need to count. I mean, we don't. The people need to know that they count, and therefore, lifkodotam means not just to count. I don't need to know how many there are. Every soldier needs to know how important they are, because they have a job to do to conquer the land. Now, based on that mifkad, what's going to happen later on? When you conquer a land, and you conquer someone else's land, who gets the land you conquer? When you go to war in ancient times, who gets the booty of the war? The people who do the fighting, right? Now, we're going to conquer a land that God gave us to conquer, and how are we going to parcelize the land? Based on the people who do the fighting, right? Or those sitting and learning so people can fight on their behalf. I don't want to go there. Now, there's another reason I need mifkad, because sooner or later I need to give out the land based on that mifkad. Make sense? Now, so I have 2 reasons for having the people: to charge the soldiers, but the soldiers need to know if they win that war, what's going to be the reward? They'll get the land. Now, unfortunately, that generation never made it. Remember why? That's Sefer Bamidbar. It's a tragedy, Sefer Bamidbar, isn't it? Because up until chapter 10, up until Perek Yud, everything's going great, and then everything falls apart. And then 38 years later, the new generation's ready to go in, which is the end of Sefer Bamidbar. That's Parshat Pinchas, okay? Now I'm going to give you a sheet, And okay, should we give this out beforehand? Just pass this around.
The land was split by Goralot, by Hashem. The land was given out by Hashem, but the Goralot. The Goral but the Goral was a physical thing, but it was God that planted it.
Well, you're talking a really complicated sugya. You know what a goral means?
What?
Listen, let's say they pass a law of what do you call it? That you get free house, whatever it is. Let's say you're starting a new yeshuv, and there's 50 plots of land. There's 50 plots of land to divide up between 50 families. Okay. Now, what's the fairest way to decide who gets which plot of land? What do people do? You do a lottery. Now, a lottery doesn't decide. A lottery doesn't decide who gets it, who doesn't get it. A lottery decides who gets first choice. Understand? So when it says "Lefi Gorat Chalek et Haaretz," everyone has the page.
Yeah.
We're good. Anyone sneak? You have extras. Okay. That's good. Okay. We'll get to the Goral part in a minute. Okay. But we're going to get now. Look at the page I gave you. It says "Making sense out of the census." The page. So thanks to Ala Torah. Don't look at the back page yet. The front page. Here. First, I brought the Mishnah in Yoma. If you look at the sources, Mishnah in Yoma says the Chazan HaKnesset gave the Sefer Torah to the. It was like just like nowadays, the person who gets psicha and who takes out the Sefer Torah and who gives it to the next guy. Things haven't changed much. So he reads Achrimot, see that? And then he's going to the Sefer Torah. And then the last line, he says what? Got it? We mentioned that beforehand. So you have the sources. That's how called Chumash HaPkudim. Now, the word Mifkod, to count. By the way, the word Mifkad is in Mifkad is a Mifkad, it's not in Chumash. I was surprised to find out. I looked for Mifkad, 0 results. But Lifkod, boy, it's a lot. The verb Lifkod. And take a look how out of proportion that word is in Sefer Bamidbar. You see the graph over there? So it's a couple of times in Breshit, a little more in Shmot. But the biggest time we have it is in Bamidbar and later in Yirmiyahu. Got that? Now again, Lifkod comes in different contexts, but the idea of Pkidah, you can't miss that the word Lifkod is not just by chance in Sefer Bamidbar. It's got to be an underlying theme of Sefer Bamidbar, just by the number count. It's going to come in really key places. Now, the reason I brought in Breshit here, so on the sources, I just went some key ones that relate to our theme. We mentioned for Hashem Pakaret Sarah. That's the beginning. That's the birth of Yitzchak, which Ki Yitzchak Yikroy Chazara. And then Yitzchak has Yaakov, etc. And Yaakov says Pokod Yivkorahim Etchem, and he tells that to Yosef. Got that? So that's two. Yosef telling his brothers Pokod Yivkorahim, and Yosef tells Bnei Yisrael. What do you call it? Makes them swear again. That's the end of Breshit. Pokod Yivkorahim Etchem, and bring my bones back up. When we leave Egypt, I think. Does Chumash mention that? Do we fulfill that? Remember Parshat B'Shalach? They take, Moshe takes Atzmot Yosef with him. How many years does Yosef live for? Anyone else in Chumash live 110? Yeshua, in case you never. Who's going to bring us into Israel? That's the end of Sefer Yeshua. It matches perfectly, but that's a different share. Now, now, in the 10 Commandments, we have it in a negative context. In what sense? Remember, don't bow down to other gods. Number 5. Means basically God's watching. Understand? Lifkod means not just remember, but to take action, to do something, active. It can be negative or positive. And then now, I want kitisa in number 6. Kitisa rosh lifnei lifkudehem, v'datnu ish kofer nafsho lifkodotam, v'lednek lifkodotam. Imshat, everyone knows Hoshiat Amecha. We don't count people. Why? Because Chumash says you don't count people. Remember? Because it's you learned it's an iron heart, etc. Now, how do we count instead? We raise money. We give that half a shekel. If I follow Pshat, right? What's that money called? It's called Loya ben Negev. It's called Kesef Hapkudim. V'yikach ish kofer nafsho. Remember what the word kofer means in Hebrew, in biblical Hebrew? Mm-hmm. It's protection from the Shekhinah. Remember? Kapara, the kaporet. has the kruvim that are protecting the aron. Kapara in general, if the Kohen Gadol enters the Kodesh Kodashim, he should die because he's human. But what protects him from the Shekhinah? The kapara. That's why he has to kapara to enter. And then that's Yom Kippurim. The idea of protection from Shekhinah is kapara. Now, when you go to war, unfortunately, it's very dangerous. But Hashem, remember, Hashem is mitalech b'kereb machanecha. When you go to war, God is there with you. I was watching over. But it's dangerous in war. If you're going to war, who do we need to protect us? Hashem. What do we do symbolically before we go to war? Every soldier gives a machshit shekel. It's called kesef HaKippurim. And that should help protect the soldier. Understand the idea? That's what Parshat Ki Tisa is about. Ki tiso b'nei Yisrael lifkudehem. Nishko for nafsho bifkodotam. V'lei beid negev bifkodotam. It's not counting them that causes the negev. It's to protect them because they're about to go to war. That's mshat. I'm not saying we still don't count people. There's a lot of other reasons not to count people. There's story with David counting the people when he shouldn't have. There's lots of reasons for it. But in general, the idea of Kesef Kippurim is counting and knowing, basically remembering your connection to God, that God can protect you, but you have to be worthy of His protection. Now, then we have Kesef Kudei we talked about before. What's really neat is the number 11. I just brought that in. I mean number 11. The last one. When we talked about in Bamidbar, in Perek Daled, even when they make all the kelim of the Mishkan and put them together, even give names to the different kelim, all the different accessories in the Mishkan. Lifkod, name and lifkod means, remember the difference between a name and a number? We all grew up with that. When you want to dehumanize somebody, you give them a number instead of a name. No, that's like what they did in Germany. That's part of dehumanizing people. They did. You have a name and not a number. So that's why lifkod b'shemot. Within this week's parsha, we're going to have shemot l'mishpachotam. We're going to count we're not going to count numbers. We're going to count names. Okay, now we get to Parshat Shavua. Now let's flip the page over. Okay, now turn the page over, and I think we did this year before, but you see this little chart on the back of the page? I think I've done this with you before. I should have. You might remember. I'll just review it for those who didn't. Sefer Bamidbar. I'm going to take time out for a minute. I want to understand how critical this idea of mifkad is in Sefer Bamidbar. And I already pointed out that the book's out of chronological order, and for some reason, Sefer Bamidbar moves the census, which happened a month later, to the beginning of the book. Understand? The census at the beginning of the book is out of order. I'm assuming that's intentional. If I can easily prove later on, chronologically, the first chapter is out of order. It's because everything else afterwards happened in Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Pesach Rishon is going to be in Perek Tet. Pesach Rishon, then Pesach Sheni. Right? For some reason, the book takes the census and moves it to the beginning. You with me? I'm assuming that's intentional. Now, not only that, Sefer Bamidbar, I'll give one last pun, is a mosaic. Anyone get my pun? Because it's from Moshe Rabbeinu, mosaic, and it's a mosaic. Why? Because there's tons of Megillot, and it's like reshuffled. Now, it's really confusing the book because Chumash is either has story mode called narrative or law mode. Now, Sefer Vayikra is primarily what? Primarily laws. There's a little story about the Yom HaShmini, etc. Little thing later about the Makalel, but in general, 90% of the book are laws. The laws aren't presented as they're given. Instead, they're presented in logical, thematic order, right? First, I have the laws of Korban Yachid. Anyone can bring a Korban, and we have Korban Dava, followed by Korban Chova. Then I have laws about how to bring Korbanot, Parshat Tzav, understand? Then I have laws who can come to the temple. And how do what makes you Tameh? What makes you Torah? Then we have laws for the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. But Achrimot for sure is out of order, because it should be Achrimot. There's Shnei Ben Dayim, Parshat Shmini, we don't have Achrimot until Parshat Achrimot. The book is not in chronological. It's in thematic order, because it's a book of laws. And if there's a narrative in the story, it has to do with the laws. I need the story of Nadav and Avihu to understand the laws of Yom Kippur. pretty much. Now, the book of Breshit is all narrative, isn't it? The book of Shmot is narrative or laws? Right? It's primarily narrative. It's a story of getting out of Egypt, our enslavement, our redemption, getting to Har Sinai, entering a covenant, breaking the covenant, renegotiating the covenant, building the Mishkan. It's primarily narrative. In the middle of the narrative, I might have a law section that's part of the narrative. For example, we enter a covenant at Har Sinai, which is a story, but then we have the terms of the covenant called Aseret HaDvarim. We make a brit in Parshat Mishpatim, but I have the laws of Mishpatim that we make the brit on. Remember, by Kachet Sefer HaBrit, I'll just keep Chumash in order. Yeah, same thing. Laws of Pesach coming out of Egypt, Chukat HaPasach. If I'm going to find laws, I have laws in Sefer Shemot, but each law section is embedded in a narrative. They're part of a narrative. Got it? So Breshit and Shemot is the ongoing narrative. Vayikra is how to use the Mishkan. It's a law book. I get to Bamidbar. I'm expecting a narrative, aren't I? I need to continue. We built the Mishkan. We're all ready. We got the laws. We should move to Israel. And therefore, the first thing we do is we get ready to go to Israel, and that's going to be the first 10 chapters. So look on the left column. See the left column, the ongoing narrative. And don't look at the right. Leave the right column alone. Just look at the left column. If I filter out all the mitzvot in Sefer Bamidbar, like Paraduma and things like that, if I filter out all the law sections, I'm left with a very organized narrative. What's the narrative? The first 10 chapters is the first generation getting ready to leave. I organize the camp. I get the army ready, etc. I organize how we're going to travel, etc. I'm going to dedicate the Mishkan. I'm going to get wagons to carry the Mishkan. I'm going to have a 12-day Kiddush. I'm going to have a ceremony to transfer the Levim from the firstborn, etc. Pesach in the desert, waiting another thing. I need chatzatzot for traveling. We're trying to get a tour guide, remember? Chobav, etc. And finally, in the end of chapter 10, Vayibin Sa'aron. Right? The first 10 chapters, everything's fine. No, nothing negative yet. We're ready to go. Chapter 11, we go bankrupt. Remember what happens? Chapter 11. Mitonim, mitavim. And from chapter 11 to chapter 25, pretty much every story is something goes wrong. And instead of being the story of how the first generation travels to Israel, conquers the land, and gets their Nachalah, instead it's a story of who doesn't make it and why. Understand? It's a story about, pretty much, unfortunately, about death. About missed opportunities, people sinning, God getting angry, the people getting angry with God. It's like, again, from chapter 11 to 25, it's almost all negative. Remember the Mitabim, Mitonim, the Maglim, Korach, the what do you call it? The Nachash Nechoshet. There's story after story. Bnot Moav. Remember 24,000 died there? That's already the new generation. But it's who doesn't make it. Starting at chapter 26, it's all with the new generation. And it's all about getting ready to, what do you call it? To conquer the land, including conquering the East Bank. Remember? We have the war against Midian, we have Og and Sichon, etc. And the 2.5 tribes, etc. And we have the borders of the land, Arei Miklat, and the book Tzafkar. You understand the narrative? The narrative of the book makes a lot of sense. Nice and organized. What's the problem? As the narrative progresses in Sefer Bamidbar, it's consistently being interrupted with law sections that belong in Sefer Vayikra. For example, look on the right. If you remember back in Parshat Nosa, we have the laws of Basham, which started already. One was quoting word for word something from Parshat Vayikra, but we add what's called Gezel Ager, who to give the money back to for the Hasham. The law of Sotah is something for the temple, isn't it? Birkat Kohanim, laws of Nazir. Those sections, if they were in Vayikra, no one would flinch an eye. For some reason, they're inserted. They're not part of the narrative. Now, Pesach Sheni, obviously, it belongs in the narrative. And after the sin of the spies, we had Nesachim, remember, in chapter 15? We had Korban Vad Helab Devosh Tzibor, when the Supreme Court makes a mistake. Laws of Chala, Shabbat. There's laws that basically that are not part of the narrative. And then Paraduma we have in chapter 18, got it? And then this week's Parsha we're going to have Tamidim Musafim. What I'm trying to show you is over and over again, like 4 or 5 times, an ongoing narrative of Sefer Bamidbar is being interrupted with a set of laws that belong in Vayikra that were clearly given earlier. Now, Paraduma had to be given earlier because people were Tamei, Met, by Pesach Rishon, weren't they? And how do they? The laws of Paraduma had been given earlier. They're inserted here. Got the idea? Now, why am I calling it a mosaic? Because if I follow Chazal, Moshe Rabbeinu, every time he got a law, wrote it down in the Megillah. He had lots and lots of laws, lots and lots of stories. It came to the 40th year, God tells Moshe Rabbeinu, publish and perish. If you remember that line. Remember? God tells Moshe, it's time to die. Chazal say, when does Moshe put Chumash together that we have? Chumash is put together in the 40th year. That's according to Chumash and according to Chazal. It's called the Torah Megillah, no? But Chumash, where we do Hagba, I'm talking the firm approach. We get the Chamisha Chumash as we have it, was Moshe puts it all together in the 40th year. Now, did God tell him how to? No, it's God gave him all the laws. Who decided what goes where? No, it's who decided. I call that God and Moshe Rabbeinu incorporated. It's not. That's just an interesting question. Yeah, real quick.
Was the complete revelation on Har Sinai in Parshat Yitro, or did Moshe receive?
Yitro Moshe in Parshat Yitro, Moshe didn't receive anything other than he heard God talking a lot.
Okay, I mean, in terms of
nothing's written down on Shavuos night.
Okay, so just in terms of
wait, listen. Matan Torah. The key event is we accept the covenant. The Jewish people accept to be God's people. It's going to take months till we get a written document. Got it? And we're going to contract. We're going to rip up that contract and start another contract. You follow? Then till the lawyers take care of things, takes months. Until we build a house. Whoa, yeah. What?
Did Moshe receive all this information at once, or did he receive this on an ongoing basis from the
He received some laws on Har Sinai in the first 40 days. Got more in the second 40 days. Once the Mishkan is built, he gets more laws from the Olam Moed. He gets laws when people have questions. So that's the thing. It's an ongoing narrative. Now, people when you want to keep it simple, you say Moshe got everything in Har Sinai. So Eshchat, no, but he couldn't. That's midrashic. But in Pshat, and again, it's in Chazal also. Chumash as we have it, it only makes sense it's the 40th year. For example, after we get the man, what's the same Parshat B'Shalach? Bnei Yisrael ate the man for 40 years until we crossed the Jordan. So that's for sure in the 40th year. Even Ramban agrees. He has to give in there. Now, you can argue when Moshe puts it together in the 40th year, what's the underlying logic of the Mosaic? Got it? Am I putting it in thematic order, in chronological order? That's when I have to organize a library. Remember the Dewey Decimal System? That's complicated. If I'm making a collage for my kid's bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, remember you have all the pictures, you make this collage? So what do you put next to what? You follow? Do I go? What do you put in the middle? What do you put? It's not going to go only in chronological order, even though someone would want to do that. That's why I'm calling it a mosaic. But for some reason, unlike any other book, Bamidbar is very choppy. Why? Because I have laws with the narrative, but they're not part of the narrative. Got that? Now, I call this a pshat of drash, because what does Chazal want us to do? Even though there's no obvious connection between Nagid Paraduma and Miriam's death, okay? What did Chazal say? What did we learn? Remember in Bitat Tzadikim Mechaperet? There's no connection between Parshat Tzitzit and Korach, but what? What's Korach's question? Kalit Tzukot Chelet. Or what do you call it? Or it's like V'lot Torah Lebavchem in the story of the spies. What did Chazal, when Chazal asks the question, Lama Nismacha Parshazu LaParshazu, they're not asking why was the law given now. Listen carefully. We'll get to this in this week's Parsha in a minute. Do you know what Smichut Parshiot is? When two unrelated topics are next to each other, the rabbis ask, what's the connection between them? The question isn't, why was that law given now? The question is, why is this law recorded, even though it was given earlier, why is it recorded here as opposed to somewhere else? Or why is the story recorded here even though it's out of order? Got it? And what's the assumption of Chazal? There must be some educational or thematic reason for it. And therefore, what does Chumash want us to do? To Doresh. I call that the pshat of drash. The book is begging drash, isn't it? But the pshat of the book is God wants us to Doresh. Now, there's another question: who has license to make up drashot? So, if it's allowed to drasha, anybody can. If it's a good word, only up into the 1500s. I'm just joking. In other words, who has license nowadays to make new drashot? So, any shul rabbi. That's every Dvar Torah is a drasha, isn't it? But as long as it's not too good, you can say it. If you say something that makes a lot of sense, whoa. And that's called the new. Anyway, that's a little side joke. Now, let's go back to our topic here. Okay, we have to eat the Parshat Pinchas somehow, and the census in Parshat Pinchas to see what's going on. Now, look at the end of the book. Okay. Remember, chapter 25 was the story after Bilam and Balak. We have the story of Benot Midian. Do you know how many people died in the plague? What? How do we know that? It's the last line. It's the last line of the parsha, isn't it? No. And then afterwards, we have a commandment to take revenge against the Midianim for causing this trouble. Then we have the war against Midian, etc. And then all the laws at the end about inheriting the land. Now, open up your Chumash now. I'm going to show you something really interesting. Open up Parshat Shavua. Where are we? Perek Chaf Hey. We read it this morning. But remember, the last line of Parshat Balak, there were 24,000 people killed, and then we have some, secondary information about Pinchas. Because of this, he got Kohuna, and we find out who the people, the troublemakers were, etc. And we get their names. Now, Pasuk Tetzayin. Have it? In Perek Chaf Hey. Vayidaber Hashem Moshe Lemor. Tzor et Midyanim v'kitem otam. Now we have to get revenge against the Midyanim for attacking us. Why? Ki tzorim lechem milichem ashir klechem advar poor v'advar chutbi bat nasi Midyan achotam amukab yom al-gefa advar poor. Okay, so it's a commandment to fight the Midyanim. What should the next topic be chronologically? God says tzor et Midyanim. What should happen next?
Which pasuk are you?
The end of Perek Chaf Hey. Pasuk Tetzayin Yudzayin Yudchet.
Maybe the war.
We should go to war. Now, does Chumash ever tell us about that war? Yeah, but that again, that Parshat Matot suffers from summer vacation, isn't it? Who knows Matot Maseh? Besides, it's a double Parsha, but whoa, everyone's in camp. There's nothing like no one's paying attention. We're not in school. There's no Parsha quiz. There's nothing. You follow? There's nothing to talk about at the Shabbos table because your kids didn't get anything from school. No. Now back to now where is the story in Perek Lamed Aleph? Take a look. Keep your finger here. Go to Perek Lamed Aleph. Make sure it's still there. Okay. Vayidaber Hashem Moshe Lemor. Nukom nikmat bnei Yisrael meita midyanim b'achar tesef alamecha. Got to go to war against Midian, and then it's time to die. And then what's Moshe? How many people go? 1,000 for every tribe. Got that? What's the problem? Between chapter 25, which should be the war against Midian at the end, we don't get the war until chapter 31. Everything in between is an insert. Got it? What are we inserting? So look what happens in Pasuk Perek Havav in the first line. V'yachrei magifa. What should follow? The war, shouldn't it be? Look in Perek Havav Pasuk Aleph. What's so strange about Pasuk Aleph? I'll read it again. V'yachrei magifa. V'yimar Hashem Moshe be'elazar kohen lemor. Suet rosh b'kodah b'nei Yisrael b'nosim shana b'mala. There's a commandment to take another census. Understand? Now, when you read it just casually, what's the simple reason why are we taking a census when God says go to war? Right? Yeah. Because we're going to war and need to take a census. But why doesn't that make sense? Because how many soldiers do we need for every tribe? 1,000 to go to war. I don't need to count 600,000 soldiers to send 1,000 per tribe. Got it? It's a miftzah, not a milchama. You understand? If you know Israeli terminology, you might change the name in the middle when you want to keep stalling, but that's.
You were also discounting how many there were achrei magifa with a break in the middle of a pasuk.
Yeah, which is really strange. A break in the middle of a pasuk. Something's going on here, right? Why the break? And I don't need a mifkad. Now, were the Parshanim bothered by this mifkad now? Of course they were. Remember, there's two on the page. Do I have both Rashis on the page? I think I put Rashi on the page. No? Yes or no? I thought I did. Did I have Rashi on the front page? Oh yeah, the bottom. So Roman numeral 3. Yeah, on the bottom of the first page, of the front page, with all the chart on it. See it? Roman numeral 3. Okay. V'yachrei magifa. Mashal b'ro'eh. What's a ro'eh? A shepherd, okay? Shenichnasu ze'ivim l'toch edro v'argu b'hem. a shepherd watching a sheep. What happened? Wolves came and attacked the what do you call it? The sheep, the flock. And who moneotam ledam minen hanator. He's so worried about his flock. How many survived? You follow? How many people survived that thing? That's a responsible thing. Now, who's the ro'eh? Moshe. The ro'eh is HaKadosh Baruch Hu or Moshe? I think HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right?
It's easier to count the numbers that died rather than everyone.
Oh, that makes too much sense. Yeah. No, if I know how many left, I just had Moshe read Chumash. That proves the Chumash wasn't written yet, because Moshe would have known there were 20. Would be easy to count how many people died and how many people are still alive. So that's why it's a mashal. Now Rashi's quoting Chazal. Oh, by the way, look at this Davar Acher, another mashal. Kshiatzu miMitzrayim v'nimtzu leMoshe himtzu lo b'minyan. When we left Egypt, Moshe got the number. Achshav shekarav lamut v'achzir tzono maksum b'chinyan. Right? Moshe is now the shepherd, right? And the first one, God's the shepherd. Wants to know how many he commands Moshe to do the counting for him, but God's the senior shepherd. Now Moshe is the shepherd, and he's watching God's flock, but he's the shepherd. And when Moshe received the flock, he got a count, and now he's giving them back. He's got you have to take what's called accountability. You heard that word? It doesn't exist in Hebrew. Now, got that? But both are mashalim of oreh and son. Got that? Now, how come I'm saying the midrashim and upshot? Because if I want to find out why we're counting the people, all I need to do is read Chumash. Okay? Now, that's hard because it's later. You have to go through all the long counting. And everyone knows, remember, every name, we get like every family name, and we add a hey and a yud to every name. Remember, Mishpachat we add a hey in the front and yud in the end. That's like a giveaway, the drush. We're putting God's name with every family. And we have Mishpachotam. Again, that's all the drushot you hear every week from the shul rabbis. Now, look at the end of Perek Havav. Pasuk Nun Bet. I'm sorry, Pasuk Nun Aleph. Eila Pekudei Bnei Yisrael 600,000 Aleph, 730. 601,770. Almost zero population growth in 40 years because so many people died in the desert. So we have a total count, and now look at Pasuk Nun Bet. Vaydaber Hashem Moshe lemor le'ele tachleket haaretz benachala b'mispar shemot l'rabta benachloto l'matamit nachloto ish api pekudav nachalot. To this accounting, right? We're going to give out nachalot based on what? If you're a rabbi, you get a big nachala because you're in the government. And so yes, I'm joking again. But what's the mean l'rabta benachloto?
As you said.
What? No. Rab doesn't mean here. Rabbi means. But based on how do we give out? How do we parcelize the land? Based on relative population. To do that, what do I need to do? I need to make a census. It makes sense to make a census because where we're about to go, we're about to conquer Israel. Now, does anyone ever in the war against Midian? Does anyone die? How do we know? It says so. They say so. Remember? That's why they make this whole day. They're so happy no one died. Remember? Lo nifkad mimeno ish. Isn't that a great wordplay? In Chumash HaPekudim? No one died in that war. Now, when's the last time anyone dies in Sefer Bamidbar? What? It's at 24,000. That's it. In other words, the book is such a tragedy, isn't it? The generation leaving Egypt ready to go in, and everything falls apart. And so many people die. And it doesn't work. Right? The last time anyone dies in Sefer Bamidbar is a story of Benot Midian with the 24,000. Got it? And Pinchas spares the moment, doesn't it? It saves the day. So, there's something we read when we just take a sec to appreciate this. Keep your finger here. Go to Sefer Devarim Perek Daled, Pasuk Gimel. You know it by heart. You know Pasuk Daled by heart. We said it this morning in Shul. Moshe is giving his speech in Sefer Devarim, the introduction in Perek Daled. Listen to Chukim Mishpatim and don't add and don't take off. And then he gives them a little warning. Pasuk Gimel. Einechem harot asher asa Hashem elokech leBaal Peor. You remember what God did to Baal Peor. Why? Ki kol ish asher halach achrei Baal Peor yishmido Hashem elokech b'kibrecha. V'atem, who's V'atem? You survived the 40 years in the desert. Hadvekim b'Hashem elokechem, as opposed to those who sinned. Chaim kolchem hayom. What's that mean? The last death in the desert was Benot Midian. Now, what's Chumash doing to highlight this? Right? Now, I'll show you in a minute where the census belongs. When should we take this census? This census should be taken right before we go to Israel, right? But for instead, the census is here. Got it? Right after what? The last person died. I think we're highlighting that the question isn't why are we taking a census now? We're not going to take the census till later. This again is a parsha that's out of place. Look on this chart I gave you again. There's a whole section here that belongs at the end of the book. That's what I'm going to prove to you now. We have 5 minutes left. Okay. See chapters 26 and 27. I want to show you. I want to prove to you. Chapters 26 and 27 belong at the end of the book. It'll be real easy to prove. But what does the book do? It took a census that belongs at the end of the book and moves it to the beginning of the 3rd section. Got it? Where do we have something similar happening? The first section, remember there's 3 narratives in the book. The first generation getting ready to go, why they failed and who doesn't make it. And the last section of the book is the new generation getting ready to go. The first generation getting ready to go begins with a census that's out of chronological order. And the final section of the book, with the new generation ready to go, begins with a census out of order. What's the book intentionally doing? It's taking a census that's out of place and moving it to the beginning of the unit. Does that make sense now? I'm not saying why, I'm saying that's what's happening. So it's easy to prove that each census is out of chronological order, and each census is moved to the beginning of a unit. That's why the units are so important to me. So what's the book highlighting? The importance of a mifkad. I'm trying to explain why Chazal called the book Chumash HaPkudim. Now let me show you where it belongs. It's real easy. Go to Perek in Parshat Maseh. Go to Perek Lamed Gimel, the very end. After we get all the Basaot, in Pasuk Nun, Lamed Gimel Nun. Okay, God tells Moshe about Moab, Ayden Rechol Emor, Daber B'nei Yisrael ki atem ovrim et Yarden lavo, v'Hashem b't'aretz, all the famous psukim. Pasuk Nun Daled, the famous one. V'nachaltem et ha'aretz b'goral, like you mentioned. Okay, Pasuk Nun, Perek Lamed Gimel, Pasuk Nun Daled. V'nachaltem et ha'aretz b'goral, after you conquer the land, b'rashtem et ha'aretz, then we v'nachaltem et ha'aretz b'goral, l'mishpachotechem, l'rabta ben achloto. Again, that's why I made the joke before. L'rabta ben achloto, u'lamat tamit nachloto, al asher yitzeh lo shema goral, lo yeh lamatot abtam tichalo. You get that based on population size. Which one do you get? That's a goral. You understand? Now, then we have the whole thing. Now, what should follow? Look what follows next. Perek Lamed Daled are the borders of the land you have to conquer. Pasuk Tet Zayin are the names of the people who are going to give out the Nachalot. Remember? The Manchilin. Elu Shmot Anashim Asher Yanchilu Lechem et Eretz Canaan. Then I have the cities of the Levites and the cities of refuge. And then we end with the end of the Benot Tzavchad story. If Perek Chavav, if the census was in Parshat Maseh, no one would flinch an eye, right? It belongs right here. Now, I'll show you one final proof. Go back to Perek Chavav, the census is over. Who complains after the census? Everyone knows. Benot Tzavchad, remember? You know why they're the first movement? That's a bad joke, but okay. All their names are about movement. It's a moving stuff. Give me their names. You know them by heart, right? Tirza. What word is that? To run. Larutz. Got it? Machol. Machla is a circle dancing, right? Noah. Lanoah. Tirza, we have Noah. What? Chogla, we have lachog, like machog is a circle. Milka, lalechet. Got it? Machog. Machog is like a compass, a circle. Lama gam nachuga, machog, lachekachag, a circle. Yeah. What? We have like a chuga. That's where the word comes from. But each one it talks about movement, either quick or either walking or running or circular or dancing. Got it? So I call it the first women's movement. This is a cute joke. I don't know why, but it's really cute. Now back to I guess Sofo is probably too innovative. That must have been a sin. Now, what happened? What's wrong? I'm sorry. What did we do? So because of the mifkad, it's a mifkad acholot. It makes sense that Benot Tzavchad is right afterwards. But where's the end of the Benot Tzavchad story? At the end of the book, that's the end of the book, the end of Parshat Maseh. The story of Baruch Tzadchad ends in the end of the book. Got it? That proves to you that it belongs. It's not. That's out of order. This is out of order. It belongs at the end. And what's the final proof? After Baruch Tzadchad, right? Moshe's career is over. God told him the women are right. Look what happens. Poor Moshe Rabbeinu. Chavav pasuk Chavzayin pasuk Yudbet. Okay. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, Alei el har barim, urei et haaretz asher natan bnei Yisrael, urita ota b'nesapta lamecha, kasher nesapta l'mechicha. God tells Moshe it's time to die. Kasher mitem et pi. What should happen? It's time for Moshe to die. Where's the story belong? At the end of the book, isn't it? It's in B'zot HaBracha. What's it doing here? If it's going to be in Bamidbar, it belongs at the end. You understand? Wouldn't Perek Chavav and Chavzayin be a perfect ending of the book? It's right there. Just put what do you call it? The end of the book Tzadchad story with Bnei Yosef coming, saying, remember they're also right. They have to marry within the tribe. Perek Chavav and Chavzayin belong at the end of the book. Chumash put it up front. Now, why do they do that? Listen to Moshe Rabbeinu's response to God telling him it's time to die. He doesn't argue here. He's ready to retire. He cares about his people. Listen to what Moshe says. The only time in Chumash we have Vaydaber Moshe el Hashem lemor. We have always Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe lemor. Vaydaber Moshe el Hashem Dibur. It's always Vayomer. Vaydaber, that's harsh. Everyone have it? Pasuk Tetvav in Perek Chavzayin. Vaydaber Moshe el Hashem lemor. Yifkod Hashem alei ruchot chol basar isha leida. Moshe says, don't tell me to die. Before I die, I need a successor. Why? Okay. So put some. What's the word? Yifkod. You understand what Moshe is saying? Moshe understands why it's called Chumash HaPkudim. Put someone in charge. Yifkod Hashem isha leida. Asher yitzei lifneim, asher yibod lifneim. Asher yotzeim, asher yiviim. Listen carefully. V'lo tiyeh adat Hashem katzon asher ein lehem ro'eh. Who uses the mashal first? Of that Am Yisrael is like a flock of sheep and God's their shepherd. That's Moshe Rabbeinu. That's Moshe's mashal himself. Understand? Moshe says, if you don't appoint a successor for me now, Am Yisrael will be like sheep without a ro'eh.
And the ro'eh is Moshe.
What?
The ro'eh is the leader, not Hashem.
Yeah, but God owns the flock. Okay, but I'm saying, but Moshe's using that analogy. But that Am Yisrael is God's sheep. That's for sure in the analogy. Who's the ro'eh? Moshe was. That's the second day on Rashi. Remember the second day in Rashi? I gave them to you. I counted them. You're leaving your job now. I'm counting them again. You understand the beautiful? I want you to appreciate how awesome Rashi is. The two Midrashim is quoting using the ro'eh analogy. Rashi's not coming to explain why we're counting the people. Chumash says why we're counting the people. It's a mifkad nachalot. We need to do. Why is it inserted here? Why? Because it's Moshe's job. It all relates to Moshe's, the tragedy of Bamidbar of leadership that didn't work, and Moshe has to die, not going into Israel. Now, so I just gave a technical explanation what order the book should be in chronologically, and that's out of order, and how the mifkad goes up front, and the dagesh of the word mifkad all through the book. I want to just end with maybe a possible reason. Because when something goes wrong, ever since Gan Eden, what happens when something goes wrong? We blame someone else, don't we? It works, doesn't it? That's why we have governments. That's why we have schools, right? That's why we have. There's always someone else to blame, isn't there?
Well, we have kids.
What? That's why. We always blame. Anyone in education knows, right? It's the parents' fault. It's the kids' fault. It's never the teacher's fault. It's never the parents'. Never the kid's fault. He's privileged. But you can always blame somebody else, and leadership is blamed in Sefer Bamidbar, aren't they? And there is what to blame in leadership, but everyone's to blame. You follow? What's the tikkun of things going wrong? Every individual needs to know that they count. Got it? That's why Chumash HaPkudim, despite everything, the long-term solution is everyone has to be charged. Even though leadership can be blamed, leadership begins with the individual people, and everyone has a name, everyone has a family. The mishpachotam, the beit avotam. You can always sit back and complain. Leadership's to blame. Everything's to blame. If I want to fix the tragedy of Sefer Bamidbar, with leadership, it begins with everyone counting, everyone being counted. Okay, that's a rabbi's rush already for the end of the book. But the main thing I want to show you that when Chazal called the book Chumash HaPkudim, it makes a lot of sense. And where Chumash puts the census is, and the davesh, and the word lifkod is key from the beginning, begins already in Sefer Bereshit, the idea of Pekida. But calling the book Chumash Hapkudim, because Am Yisrael are being charged to take the challenge of becoming a nation, to set up a nation serving God in the land of Israel. And that's a pekudah, that's a command. And we need mefakdim, and we also need pekudim to follow. Okay, well, I'm over time, so we'll stop here. And we have a 5-minute break. 10-minute break. We'll start at 10:31. 10:30. Okay, sorry for overtime, but.